And there is more on the investigation into this U.S. Army officer, one of their own, accused of this rampage at Fort Hood. Tonight, some members of Congress say they want to know why the Army didn't do more to look into the activities of Major Major Hasan. And our Justice correspondent, Pete Williams, with us from Washington, has learned more tonight about this suspect's contacts overseas. Pete, good evening.
Brian, U.S. intelligence officials now say that Major Hasan sent nearly 24 emails to an exiled American whose jihadist rants are believed to inspire others to plan terror attacks. But nothing at the time, they say, suggested that Hasan himself presented any kind of danger.
And this is what happens when we are left to our own limited judgment as human beings.
Anwar al-Awlaki, an outspoken radical cleric, received a string of emails from Major Hasan, officials say, starting nearly a year ago and continuing for a few months. Investigators say Hasan asked questions that were deemed to be, quote, consistent with research he was conducting on Muslim soldiers and post-traumatic stress. The conclusion at the time, they say, was that Hasan was not involved in terrorist activities or terrorist planning and was himself no threat. And they say the Defense Department was well aware of the emails. But some members of Congress say, regardless of the subject, emailing al-Awlaki, an advocate of violent anti-Western jihad, should have been grounds for immediate dismissal.
In view of the fact that as a major in the United States Army, he is without permission contacting an American enemy overseas in time of war, to me should disqualify him from serving in the United States military.
Officials say investigators at the time also looked at 10 years' worth of Hasan's Army personnel evaluations, described as strongly positive. The reviews said Hasan was making important contributions to the Army. And while former medical school classmates recall him as critical of the Army's treatment of Muslims, the spokesman says there's no record that any of them ever filed a complaint. Hasan formally expressed some of that criticism in a 2007 classroom presentation, first obtained by the Washington Post. His conclusion, releasing Muslim soldiers as conscientious objectors would increase troop morale and, quote, decrease adverse events. Experts in military law say if Hasan himself had sought that status, he still might have not avoided being deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan.
He was not in a combat role. He's in a medical role. And so the question of whether or not he was going to Iraq or Afghanistan would still be up to question.
As for the investigation, officials say it now appears that all the rounds that caused wounds and the fatal shots at Fort Hood were fired by Hasan, despite concerns earlier that some might have come from the shots fired by the police officers who brought him down. Brian?
All right, Pete.